Us right now is Democratic strategist, Solidarity Strategies president, Chuck Rocha. And Chuck, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So is extending DACA enough to get the immigration plan passed, do you think?
I think they're two separate things. I think the system has been broken for a long time. I think there's lots of people who want to come to our country and pay taxes and play by the rules. And if you don't, by all means, let's send you back because nobody wants you here. But these young kids who came here, one of which works for me, who's paid taxes, who are public school teachers, who fight in our armies, who may have been 6-month-old babies when they came here, don't even know the language of their country they go back to, separate them out. Let's deal with them separately, and then let's have a robust debate about keeping our borders secure, making sure that there's an avenue for people to come here legally, and then figure out ways to work with the people that are undocumented that are currently here. I openly am ready for that debate as a Mexican-American, proud of my heritage. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we do this. I think the E-Verify is very important. I think that if you're holding employers accountable, those same employers who are employing undocumented people and drawing them here, I think that's a big thing that I can agree with the president on.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, do you think, though, the president would accept DACA separate from immigration reform, or do you think this thing is just a negotiating ploy to put huge demands on the table and then say, aha, we got something, whereas we would have had nothing?
Steve, I think you're onto something. Imagine this in Washington, D.C., they may be playing a little political football with immigration like they've done for a long time, which is the reason I think we've never really had a solution. On the left, we play it up to turn out Latinos to vote. On the right, they do it to gin up the other side to turn up and vote. These are real people's lives. We should deal with it in the way we can do it.
Do you think the left of the Democratic Party would be willing to do any deal with Donald Trump, or are they just going to say no, no, no?
There's a big swath of America in the middle that wants to see that happen. But what happens is you have the far right and the far left who listen to the base of their parties, who help run those parties. So sometimes the middle gets left out, and that's what's wrong with our politics as a whole.
The president's expected to sign an executive order this week in an attempt to push forward health care reform. What about that? I mean, the order will reportedly begin to roll back some of the requirements that were in there under the Affordable Care Act. Are you expecting this to pass?
I've been watching this. I live in Washington, D.C. I live on Capitol Hill. I've been watching this back and forth. I don't feel like it will happen. I think as we move into 2018, things are becoming, again, political. We had a small window of time to try to get legislative accomplishments, and I think that window is closing dramatically with the budget coming up that you talk about here all the time, and with the way that we need to extend what happens in running our day-to-day government. I think that's going to consume all the oxygen in the room.
You know, you wonder, because of the budget right now that they passed in the House last week that's going to go to the Senate floor next week, includes a lot of assumptions about the repeal and replace happening, Steve, doesn't it?
It does, which gets to this whole thing of the Republicans worshiping the Congressional Budget Office, which is like worshiping Vestal virgins. At least the virgins give you some entertainment. And but the CBO has never been accurate. And I think the Republicans are going to have to say, we have our own models. We're going to go ahead. They just have to pass a budget resolution no matter what's in there so they can get to real tax reform.
One of the things that I've been looking at, too, in this immigration thing is how much money they're going to be spending. We've got the border wall. We've got also a huge number of immigration officers that they're talking about hiring. 10,000, I think, is in the list of demands. And so, I'm curious how that is all going to factor into the budget that they're putting forward as well.
But the last time we passed comprehensive immigration reform wasn't a total package, but we got it through the Senate, and it stalled in the House. And there was a lot of money in there, again, for border security. And we've thrown money at the border, hashtag under security, under the ambiance of security. And right now, immigration, in fact, is at a 20-year low. Latinos and other folks who are coming into this country don't see this as an immigration-friendly administration. Imagine that. So it's curtailed the immigration as just raw numbers, right? And we keep putting money into the wall or into immigration, and it has reduced the number of people coming here undocumented. I think that these 70-point proposal, we should talk about them one by one and figure out what is most cost-effective, but then also what will really work.
Right. This is a goulash in terms of immigration proposals, and so a lot of this will fall by the wayside. And a lot of it, I think the Trump administration will give in on in order to get something done here. But DACA, Congress has to do something about DACA. It expires in March, and I think that he threw that at them to put the pressure on both Democrats and Republicans to move on it.
All 800 of these young people have all been through a criminal background check. They recheck every year.
Right.
They've got jobs. They've got work permits. They're paying taxes. I think you have to separate them out from somebody who came here undocumented as an adult.
And I think it's in his heart. I think it's in the president's heart that he wants those younger people to stay here. I think that's the real truth if you've listened to what he said about it, and the fact that he reached out to Pelosi and Schumer on it.
But do you think the Democrats will try to have a confrontation and say nothing on DACA? It's either that or up and down vote?
Steve, that's the $10,000 question. I want to think in my heart that we get there at some point to that point, because I think that the pressure's on them as well to get something done. And leaving these 800 young people out there unprotected with nothing, I think could be as bad on them as it is on Republicans if they don't do something. I would take you back to Nancy Pelosi's town hall a couple of weeks ago when DACA students took the stage. Like, they were being watched on both sides.
All right, we will leave it there. Chuck, good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chuck Rocha there.